often we talk about India and we talk about demographic dividend and the young population that we have that should help us sort of moving to the next phase of economic growth. The key sort of to exploit this demographic dividend that we have is to ensure our youth is well trained, educated, and healthy and fit. And if we can do that, then of course we'll have those kind of benefits. Now, what happened last year is due to this pandemic, health of course became the first priority and we made a lot of progress there. There was a cut in educational spend from central government during budget, so that budgetary allocation actually came down by about 6% to around 93,000 crore from center. Now, this year is an opportunity in a way to make up for that, and we personally feel that it should go up by 10% to make up for that 2021 shortfall. Anyway, if you look at our documents from earlier, there is a recommendation that we should have about 6% of GDP that is to be spent on education. In our budgetary allocation, we see that including state and center, we are hovering around just about 3%. So there is a lot that has to be done in terms of increased allocation going forward. But since we have priorities and sort of conflicting priorities to an extent, and we have to sort of make good for everything. And from that perspective, it can be a slow, steady increase as we have seen over the past few years. So like in up to 2019, it was about 2.8%, then we moved up to 3.1%. Now, while that can happen, the finance minister can consider some of the alternatives, which are not direct allocation, but incentivizing or offering some sort of tax incentive. So for instance, we have section 80C, where the tuition fee paid for up to 2 children education is tax deductible. But section 80C in a way is very crowded. You have this EPF, PPF, housing loan principal, insurance premium. So most of us would have taken some housing loan, we might have some provident fund, etc. So it's sort of, people are not able to take the benefit of that deduction when it comes to tuition fees of their children. And if we can sort of carve out a separate provision or section where this children education or tuition fees, if that can be considered for separate deduction under that section, that would be a great help to parents in terms of their costs that they are incurring towards their education. The second thing is we have the section 80E, where we offer deduction on the interest paid on education loan. Now, as we have done in housing case, affordable housing, if we can offer some concessional rate there or some form of rebate, that to that extent will reduce the burden on parents who might be taking loan for their children education, for higher education. So that's the other thing that can be done. And of course, the education cannot be especially the higher education part of it, it cannot be achieved by government alone. So while government can keep on building institutions, if some of the private institutions, if they are sort of working towards building new infrastructure, digital infrastructure, making some sort of investments in that area, they can be incentivized. Because what we have noticed over past 2 years during this pandemic, that this digital divide has played a big role. Those with better connectivity, data, internet access, most schools and colleges or universities could maintain their academic schedule, whereas those in remote areas who didn't have such access, to that extent they suffered. And the government should kind of make sure that the allocation should move in the direction of building such digital infrastructure so that the online education can be delivered, that can be taken to remote areas where the physical access might not be possible. And even on the executive education side, it's very important that we keep on upgrading our educated youth who is already employed, given that we are entering into an era of digitalization, or artificial intelligence, machine learning, new business models are emerging. So everyone sort of needs to upgrade, and if some efforts and allocation can be made in that direction, sort of to focus on some of the new areas of learning and the digital infrastructure that is required for delivering that kind of education across the country, then probably that will help us moving to the next phase of growth. Because as I mentioned that, if we were to take the full benefit of the demographic dividend and the young population that we have to ensure that they remain fit and employable and well trained to sort of really contribute towards the economic growth of the country. So that's the kind of expectation from the minister, and we hope that not only the allocation towards education will increase, but there are a few other incentives that can be introduced, or sort of that helps reducing the cost of education from parents' perspective, and that incentivize even academic institutions and universities to make proactive investments in new technologies and new ways of delivering education. So with that, thank you.